Hello, everyone. I am back with chapter 12 of System Synthesis entitled Entrance Exam. On the day of Yui's entrance exam, Ichigo was up and moving at 4:30 in the morning. He had too much energy inside of him to let him sleep for any longer. He had spent nearly an hour talking to Katsuki about the exam until the blonde barked at him to fuck off and ended the call when the clock hit 8:30. When Ichigo stepped out of his apartment door, he found himself staring at Shota, who probably just returned from his patrol. Ichigo beamed and greeted him. Shota replied with a tired grunt and something like too early, too bright, before ruffling his hair and stepping inside of his apartment. He sprinted down the stairs, skipping multiple at once before jumping onto the next platform. Someone's excited. Ichigo glanced to his side as he took to running down the empty streets, smiling at Nana. It was dark and foggy. The early January wind caressed his cheeks, making him shiver, even though he didn't actually feel cold. His cold resistance was preventing the low temperatures from affecting him, and fire breathing was keeping him warm from the inside. I like winter mornings. Isuku turned to his other side to find En tagging along as well. Hi, Isuku chirped. Good morning! En let out a low chuckle, his eyes curving into crescents. Good morning, Izuku. What? The little psycho is up already? Another loud voice spoke. Izuku huffed good-naturedly as he jumped up a fence before sliding down the sloped stone wall. Morning, Banjo! He chirped, jumping right before the slope came to an end. Hello, Izuku. Shimori greeted, though it was only inside his head. Morning, Mori-san. Izuku greeted. Are we going to see crabs? And asked. Excitement was clear in his voice as he lifted his head above the collar of his jacket. Izuku giggled and skipped over the railing where the beach started. We are. En didn't reply, but it was easy to tell he was excited. Izuku kicked off his shoes and ran through the sand, feeling the coarseness of it under his feet. En separated from him, while Izuku took to running along the length of the beach. As a vestige, En unfortunately couldn't stay too far from him. The crabs aren't awake yet, En pouted, returning to him a minute later. Don't worry, buddy. They'll be up soon, Banjo assured, slapping his hand against En's back. En frowned and quickly sidestepped to hide behind Shimori's body. Banjo blinked when his hand hit nothing, and looked around, surprised. Izuku laughed, activating Sprint to burn a little more energy. 30 minutes passed by in a blink, and soon after All Might came to the beach, in his hero form, complete with his hero suit and wide grin. Izuku had sensed him coming, and took to hiding in the bushes. I am here, he declared loudly in his signature pose. Izuku snickered, seeing his master look around confused when he found no one. Poor Toshi, Nana chuckled, as Izuku launched himself from his hiding spot and landed perfectly on All Might's shoulder. The hero yelped in surprise and spun around, but Izuku clung onto him tightly, snickering. Oh! He stopped when he realized it was Izuku and slumped his shoulders. What a surprise that was, young Midoriya. Good morning, All Might, he chirped, hopping off and landing behind the hero. A good morning indeed, my boy, All Might greeted back boyishly. He shifted back to his normal form with a poof and smiled softly. You look excited. I am, Itsuki replied. I can't wait till the entrance exam. He paused and frowned. Do you think I'll do good? Yagi's gaze softened as he bent his knees to meet Isuku's gaze. I think you'll do Marvelously, my boy. But what if I don't? Izuku asks because he didn't have long-range attacks like the rest of the candidates might have. He still couldn't use fire breathing in its third form, and the first form didn't last for too long and drained too much energy at the current stage. Neither I nor anyone who knows you thinks you won't do marvelously in the exam. Yagi replied and placed a hand on his head. And no matter the result, we will be proud of you. Izuku felt his lips quiver and vision blurred. He lunged forward and wrapped his arms around the man. Thank you for mentoring me. You're welcome, young Midoriya. In fact, it was my pleasure to mentor you. Yagi replied with a sigh. He added, sometimes I cannot believe my past self almost made the mistake of overlooking someone as talented as you. Izuku stepped back and shook his head. It's fine. It's all in the past. You've helped me a lot. You did good, Toshi, Nana said, standing beside him and smiling at his mentor. Nana says you did good too, Izuku relayed, looking at Nana. Yagi's gaze shifted to where Izuku looked, his expression softening even further. Thank you. Izuku sniffed. I was thinking about training a bit. Nothing intense, just some light training before I head back. Would you like to race me? Yagi asked, shifting back to his hero form. Izuku grinned and nodded. Sure! Dabi grinned at him from across the table and gave him a thumbs up as he ate his bowl of cereal. He winked and said, blow them all away. Izuku grinned. Yep. He pretended to look around and leaned in. Whispering, he added, burn a few things while you're at it. Try not to burn everything, Shota gruffly added. Dabi snickered and leaned away, winking once again. You better get the top score. I'll try. Make some chaos while you're at it. Good luck, baby, his mother said, pressing a kiss on his forehead. Izuku made a face, because I'm too old for this, Mom. And maybe his mom did read his mind, because she gave him a look. Dabi snickered, stuffing a spoonful of milk and cereal in his mouth. Izuku stuck out his tongue at him. I got to go or Kachan will get mad, Izuku said. Bye-bye. Race to the station, Kachan, Izuku said out loud as he sprinted past his friend waiting for him down the block. Huh? The fuck, you nerd! Katsuki yelled back before starting to run after him nonetheless. You fucking cheat! Hey, I will fucking kill you, you fucking cheater. Get back here! Eat my dust, Kachan! Izuku snickered. Oh, you wanna die so bad, don't ya? Katsuki growled, jumping over a fence to take a shortcut. No quirks allowed, Izuku reminded when he heard a series of familiar explosions. Fuck you! I don't need my quirk to defeat you, you damned— Hey! Izuku snickered as he skipped out of the way while Katsuki tried to pounce on him. The people around him looked at them weird, but Izuku honestly didn't care. Things were good for him. People around him were happy. He was happy. And now he was going to give the entrance exam to a school that could change his life. He had actually gotten down on his knees earlier and bowed to his skill set screen, thanking Fear Resistance for keeping him sane and not vibrating like a phone. It also helped that Katsuki looked the furthest from nervous too. He was glaring from the other side of the train coach. But then again, the number of times he had seen Katsuki nervous could be counted on one hand. Katsuki scoffed once they got off. Izuku reached the station first by a whole minute. If you fuck up because your stupid energy, I'm going to fucking strangle you, Suku. Izuku sucked in a deep breath and nodded. As soon as they approached the gate, Katsuki clicked his tongue and went on ahead, while Izuku took a moment to stand in front of the humongous gate. Feels like yesterday when I came to give the entrance exam, Nana sighed wistfully, standing next to him. Was it this big back then? No, Not at all. The new principal took it to a whole new level. Every day, I become even more convinced that we're living inside of a manga, Shigaraki muttered. Big, unmuttered. A perfect place for the budding new heroes, Banjo declared. The world's changed so far. It's nice, Shimuri commented. At that moment, Itsuki felt another presence in his mind. He frowned. He was completely sure he hadn't formed a telepathic connection with anyone, so third, Shigaraki asked. Itsuki turned around to find an unfamiliar figure standing behind him awkwardly. He was a man with hair tied up in a spiky ponytail, with a black bandana covering his forehead. He wore a combat jacket with a pair of small escape tubes coming out his shoulders. You came! Banjo beamed and out of excitement tried to slap the back of the person next to him, but Shimei, with the help of his quirk, swiftly leaned out of the way. Hello? The man bowed stiffly. I'm Kuramanto Saburo, the third user. Hello, I'm Asuku Midoriya. Did you guys come around? Shigaraki asked, sounding more serious than Asuku had ever heard him before. I'm not sure, Kuramanto replied. I need more time, but he looked at Asuku. I wish you luck for your exam. And with that, he disappeared back into smoke. Does he hate me? Oh no, kiddo. He doesn't. It's just that you're far different from the kind of people he's used to, Nana kindly explained. So he's not used to it. Don't worry, he'll come around. I'm going to talk to him, Shigaraki said. It's been going on for too long. Is everything alright? Don't be worried, Izuku, Shimori said, standing in front of him. It's just something us old users were discussing. Are you sure? Mm-hmm. Itsuku had been so focused in talking with the vestiges, he hadn't noticed a boy his age with purple hair and tired eyes until he walked right into him. Oh shit, fuck. Itsuku stumbled a few steps back, but quickly steadied. His eyes shifted to the falling purple head and quickly reached out with his hand to wrap the invisible rope around his waist and pull him up. The boy's eyes went wide with both shock and surprise, and he snapped his head up in his direction. I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. I'm sorry I used my quirk on you without asking for permission. Itsuku stopped when the guy raised his hand and looked at him, somewhat dumbfounded. It's fine, dude. Stop freaking out, he said. Then he looked down at his outfit and raised an eyebrow. Are you not cold? Itsuku looked at himself. He was simply wearing a black turtleneck and dark green joggers. He didn't really need anything else. Fire breathing and cold resistance kept him warm even during the low temperatures of January. Anything else made him feel uncomfortable. Nope. Itsuku stared at him and he stared back. So, you planning to head in? The exam starts soon? Right. Shoot. Thanks for reminding me, Itsuku blurted before turning around and sprinting. The last thing he wanted was to screw up just because he went into the examination hall late. He first went to the hall where they were supposed to give the written exam. The written exam, frankly, was easy. Or at least Itsuku thought so. He finished an hour before time and skipped his way to submit it to the clone hero Ectoplasm, who was their invigilator. The hero looked surprised at first and asked him several times if he had revised. Ichigo assured that he had completed and revised thrice before walking out of the hall. The auditorium where they were supposed to be told about the practical exam was huge. He knew UA was a big place, but the sheer size of the hall had him dumbstruck for a good few seconds. Though as of now the hall was empty except for a few students, he sat down at his designated seat, only to find himself sitting right next to his best friend. He wasn't surprised. His friend had finished this early, given he was the top student at their middle school. Katsuki acknowledged him with a bored look and clicked his tongue. Thought you died, nerd. Sorry, Isuku chuckled nervously. He noticed the seat to his right was empty until the last moment, when the purple-haired guy from before walked into the hall and sat next to him. Isuku blinked, surprised to see him again, and grinned. Hi. Why the hell did I open my mouth when I struggled to have a conversation? Met outside. Kill me. Banjo snorted in his mind, along with N and Shimori giving an amused chuckle. Not funny, guys. The guy looked at him with a raised eyebrow and nodded in acknowledgement. Isuku pressed his lips together and nodded to himself before turning away. Right, oh, you poor baby. Nana cooed. Itsuku turned his attention towards the podium, where President Mike walked in. It was weird to see him in his hero outfit in real life, far too used to seeing him in casual sweatshirts that he totally stole from Shota and faded jeans. Welcome to today's live performance! Everybody say hey! President Mike said loudly. Using his quirk, Itsuku pressed his lips together harder and curled his hand into a fist. He felt so bad when all Hisashi got was nothing but pin-drop silence. He wanted to yell back so bad, but he was more scared of embarrassing himself than he felt bad. I'm sorry, Sashi. That's cool, my examiner listeners. Hisashi continued, completely unbothered by the silent reply he got, and went on. I'm here to give you the guidelines for the exam. I guess all the teachers at UA are pro heroes of different heroics. It makes sense given there were so many senses with powerful quirks. They're going to need people to help keep the students in check and keep them from hurting. Shut up, Katsuki interrupted his mumbling. I can't hear. Itsuku stilled and looked at his friend. What? But before he could have the chance to ponder on it for longer, Hisashi started explaining the guidelines. This is how the test will go, little listeners. You'll be experiencing 10-minute mock cityscape maneuvers. Itsuku sat up straighter, selective focus, concentration, and analytic mind already working together to analyze Hisashi's words. Itsuku had already spent hours searching about Yui's entrance exam test. There was no actual information on it, which Itsuku understood was so that the newcomers wouldn't have an unfair advantage over the previous ones. But there was still enough hints. Itsuku guessed it was a test for the examinees, and given that Nezu was the principal, Itsuku didn't think it was completely out of the realm of possibilities. Of course, he had never personally met Nezu, but he had heard his dad grumbling about him enough times to get the general idea. From the data he had collected, the entrance exam had something to do with fighting robots, which gave enough answers, but at the same time wasn't nearly enough. Fighting robots could entail a lot of things. Depending on what kind of robots they'll be fighting, their advantages and disadvantages he had would vary, but Isugu had learned enough things from his dad. More often than not, heroes have no idea what kind of scene they are going to be walking into. A hero needs to be versatile and adapt to any kind of situation. No hero is a one-trick pony, Isugu. Unless you're All Might, and your one trick is ridiculously overwhelming. But Hisashi had said maneuver, and it usually means to handle something carefully. What's there to do carefully while fighting robots? Sashi said a cityscape. Will that include civilians as well? In that fighting robots will mean more than just simple fights? If it's a cityscape and the robots are the villains, which meant there had to be civilians, or at least someone that needs to be protected or saved, because being a hero isn't just about fighting the bad guys. So if Isuku blinked back his attention to his surroundings when he heard someone interrupt Hisashi, Isuku took one look at the familiar blue hair and edges of glasses peeking out from the side of their face and shrunk in his seat. Tenya Ida. He only vaguely knew the boy as a kid. Tensei had practically begged Shota for a playdate with his younger brother when the man finally caved in and agreed to be Isuku's dad. Sure, they were 7, but Isuku was smaller than most kids, and timid and nervous, and Tenya Ida was the very opposite. Isuku knew the boy didn't mean any harm. They were kids after all. But Tenya Ida was a stickler for rules, and so when he found out Isuku was quirkless and wishing to become a hero, it did not end well. For Isuku, that is. Tenya Ida was nice, of course, and probably didn't mean to hurt Isuku, but to be told he can't become a hero because he was quirkless hurt. The topic had still been sore for him, despite Shota, his mom, and even his best friend supporting him. Plus, Tenya Ida was Ingenium's brother. It stung. Isuku stayed away from him from that day onwards. He felt guilty, of course. Tenya Ida hadn't meant to hurt him. He had said what society believed and nothing else. But Isuku did end up having a panic attack. He hoped Tenya Ida didn't remember. He'd prefer a fresh start with him if possible. At least he wanted it to be like that until Tenya Ida was suddenly glaring at him. Itsuku paled in his seat. Shit, does he remember me? You, curly-haired boy. You've been muttering all this time. It's distracting, he said, cold eyes glaring at him along with his stern, almost threatening voice. If this is some sort of game to you, then please leave. Okay, so he doesn't remember. Okay, that's good. But Itsuku felt his eyes twitch. He had been muttering because tapping on the table to note down his analysis would have been more distracting and attention gathering. Huh? You got a problem with his muttering? Katsuki growled. If you even knew what he was muttering, you'd keep your mouth shut, you fucking extra. Kachan, I appreciate the help, but stop. Tenya Ida opened his mouth, obviously to reprimand Katsuki for his language, but before he could, Hisashi thankfully cut in. Examinee 7111. Thank you for pointing that out, Hisashi happily explained. Have you played the really old game Super Mario Brothers? Itsuku listened as Hisashi explained about the gimmick and frowned. Something like that. Is it even safe? What about the examinees who have mental quirks or close range quirks? Won't they have a huge disadvantage? You better put up a decent fight, nerd, Katsuki threatened as they walked out of the auditorium. I'm going to come first. Watch me. At the declaration of a fight, and nodded. I'll try my best too. Itsuku stared at the frankly terrifying size of the walls. Huh, this is new, Nana muttered in his mind. This place has a fucking city inside of it? Banjo said, surprised. Itsuku echoed the question, although a less crude version of it, as he walked around. Students from the same school weren't allowed to give exams in the same place, which Itsuku guessed was fair. Friends would have an advantage over the rest, but to think there were more cities like this was mind-blowing, and sort of intimidating. There's more than one city, Sumeri muttered, sounding a bit breathless. This is corruption, and mumbled. Blink. Itsuku looked down to find a small ball hitting the side of his shoe. He bent down to pick them up and frowned in confusion. Huh? Where did this come from? There were engravings on one side. Ochako Uraraka. He noticed the charms connected to the bell and wondered if it was meant to be a lucky item of sorts. His enhanced sense picked picked up the soft, panicked murmuring of someone nearby. He turned around to find a girl with brown bobbed hair. Isuku glanced up to take a quick look at her name. Ochako Uraka. Oh, it must be hers. I should give it to her. Isuku walked over to give her back her lucky charm when a heavy and strong hand landed on his shoulder. Isuku had already sensed it coming, but the sheer heaviness of it had still triggered his flight or fight response. He whipped his hand around and found himself looking at Tenya Ida, looking at him with a stern look. Why are you here? Hoping to interfere? He asked. Isuku blinked and stared at the boy. On a scale of 1 to 10, how mad would Tensei Aniki be if I fight his brother? Isuku! Nana chided. Banjo laughed. That friend of yours is rubbing off on you. Isuku channeled his inner Shota and tapped the girl on her shoulders while looking directly at Ida. Huh? The girl turned around, looking confused. Hey, hi, is this yours? I found it lying there. Isuku said with a smile and pointed to where he had picked it up. Oh! The girl's face lit up with a smile. Thank you, I didn't even realize. It's fine. Itsuki smiled back and turned to look back at Ida. The blue-haired boy seemed to realize his mistake. Itsuki knew Ida was a good boy, if not a bit too uptight, and opened his mouth to say something. But before he could, Hisashi's loud voice echoed throughout the place. And begin! Itsuku didn't need to be told twice. He only took a second to find where Hisashi was, only to spot his tiny figure far away at a tower, before he was sprinting into the opened gate. If there was anything that Itsuku had learned from his previous experience against villains, it is that move quickly. The villains aren't going to wait for him. The sludge villain hadn't waited while it attacked Katsuki. The villains in the mall hadn't waited before they attacked. The robots were the villains, and Hisashi had given them the go. He didn't see why he should hesitate. He spotted the first robot fairly quickly. A one-pointer. Itsuku spared a second to study it and grinned. Itsuku moved and pulled the one-pointer towards him. As soon as the robot came hurtling towards him, he jumped and landed on top of the robot's head. Disassemble. The rules said he can't bring anything apart from approved support items with himself. Nobody said he can't build one inside the cityscape. It was only when he was busy assembling a pair of laser shooters when he realized he was the only one attacking. Huh? Did I hear Sashi wrong? He faltered for a split moment and realized the rest of the examinees are still frozen at the gate before Hisashi's quick, infused voice was heard again. What's the matter, listeners? There's no such thing as countdowns in a real battle. See, those two kids get it. Itsuku didn't need to be told the other kid was Katsuki, the only one apart from him who probably knew how quick reaction was important while fighting villains. By the time the rest of the examinees were running in, Itsuku was already sprinting deep into the city, shooting down the oncoming robot with his lasers. His laser shooter, along with Second's perfect aim, made the exam a little too easy. No, En's calm voice rang in his head. No matter how easy it seems, never let your guard down. Never underestimate your opponent. Right, sorry. Itsuku decided to shift his fighting and attack the one-pointers physically with the help of One for All at 3%. It was a little too easy to break through them. Dodging the lasers being shot at him was something he had started doing unconsciously sometime through the exam. He didn't need to look. 2-pointers turned out to be no problem against the combined skills either. He stuck to shooting down the 3-pointers. While in the middle of his robot destruction carnage, Izuku spotted the purple head from before. Oh, he's in the same area as me. Nice. Watching them for a few seconds, Isuku realized the guy was primarily focused on getting the other examinees out of the way of danger. I don't think he has an offensive quirk. Well, in that case, one of his laser shooters slipped out of his hand and dropped on the ground. Oops. You dropped your laser shooter and pointed out as Isuku pulled himself away from the place. Oh, did I? Damn. Well, anyways, did he pick it up and turned around and looked over his shoulder? He did. Itsuku grinned. Nice. Every now and then, Itsuku would stop obliterating the robots for the sake of using pull to pull some examinees from danger, or to sprint and kick away any stray metal pieces currying towards them. Looking at them, Isuku realized why Shota gave so much importance to situational awareness. Things could have gone bad if it was a controlled setup. He had lost count sometime after 50, even though he knew with concentration working full time, he did actually know how many points he had collected. It's not that the exam isn't challenging, it's just that compared to Aegis and the whole situation at the mall, it's kind of less exhilarating. It didn't feel like he was actually present in the exam scene. It felt like he was playing a video game with how easily the robots were being destroyed. Itsuku guessed the whole point of the robots were to be destroyed, but still, he thought so, until the zero pointer came out. Oh, that's new, Nana said, surprised. This is definitely corruption, and mumbled. That thing is huge, Banjo exclaimed. Ugh, my head hurts because of it, Shimori groaned. Later on, Isuku might think he's been spending a little too much time with adventure seeking and daring people, see Dabi, Hawks, and Shota, but at the moment, he found himself itching to disassemble that thing. It was huge, and Asuku knew his skills would level up if he used it on them. Plus, Dabi had asked him to create a little chaos, hadn't he? Isuku was sprinting towards a humongous robot when Oil Sense picked up the sound of someone's whimper. Isuku immediately came to a halt and whipped his head around to find the source of the sound. He spotted the girl from earlier trapped under the chunk of rubble right in the same path as the zero pointer. Shit. I knew that thing couldn't have been good news. Itsuku noticed the other examinees running away, which was understandable, but how could he? Someone needed help. Someone needed to be saved. Previously, he had been deciding to take on the zero pointer solely for getting a kick out of it, but now it seemed he actually needed to destroy the thing. Itsuku sprinted forward at full speed. The robot was a minimum of 30 times the size of the three-pointer, which meant it would have just as many times, if not more, parts, and be just as many times more complex. Also meant it was going to take just as long for the entire thing to get disassembled with his skill. He needed a little time ahead of the robot. Then he imagined an invisible rope wrapped around the neck of the robot. He grabbed onto the rope tightly and jumped off. Gravity did its work and pulled him down in a wide arc. Itsuku used the circular momentum and activated One for All at 5%. His feet came in contact with the robot's body, and the metal dented under his weight. The robot skidded backwards with a loud bang. It didn't break or stop, but it gave Suku just enough time he needed. Congratulations, your skill disassemble has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill disassemble has leveled up. Congratulations, your skill disassemble has leveled up. Itsuku once again pulled himself towards the robot. His hand touched the solid head of the robot as he pushed himself upward, balancing his weight on his hand. Then he grinned. Disassemble. A second passed, and several wide rings of green light surrounded the body of the robot. Then it broke apart. Isuka would like to appreciate the exhaustion hit him like one of Shota's punches. Those were effing painful. He had suffered from too many of them during the practice spars. That was the proper stats that he didn't have, and so it drained his EP. Had spotted at least 3 people with strength-based quirks. Hey, and my right hand can't reach the rubble. Makes sense. Itsuku nodded and said encouragingly, "I'm going to try to move the rubble a bit. See if you can move your hand underneath." Oh, okay. Itsuku hid a wince as he pressed his hand against the rubble. He checked his profile quickly to see how much EP he had left. Name, Midoriya Isuku. Username, not applicable. Age, 14 years. Language, English, Japanese. Level, 20. Rank, D. Status, titles, Born to be Hero, Legendary. He who cheated death, Mythical. Ninth user of One for All. S. HP 545 out of 1000. EP 220 out of 2000. He winced. When his EP dropped below 1/10 of his total EP, it started eating away his HP gradually. Using skills like One for All was out of the question. He'd pass out before he could even push the rubble outwards. He only had his breathing techniques left. It won't be enough, but it'll have to make do. He waved away the blue notification and said on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. He groaned as he pushed the rubble away from him. It barely moved up from the ground, the small amount of gap beneath. Itsuku flinched when the rubble suddenly became weightless and took a step back. He watched wide-eyed and mouthed as it floated upwards into the sky. Then he looked down at the girl. Her face was scrunched up with intense concentration. As she stood up, she winced when her left foot touched the ground. Isuku guessed it was broken or sprained. Once she managed to step away from the spot, she touched her fingertips of both her hands together, and the rubble dropped. Isuku yelped and clapped his hand over his mouth and jogged away. He found the girl kneeling on the ground, a pool of vomit in front of her. "Are you okay?" Isuku panicked. The girl raised her hand and waved it dismissively. "I'm fine. Just overused my quirk." "Oh." Isuku relaxed. The girl looked over her shoulder and at him with a smile. Thanks for helping me." "Oh, no, you don't have to thank me. I just did what I had to do." Just then Hisashi declared with his loud, quirk-infused voice that the exam had ended. Itsuku immediately relaxed and laid down on the ground. "I'm tired," he groaned. The girl giggled. "Me too." Moments later, some robots came carrying a stretcher along with an aged woman behind them. Itsuku's eyes went wide when he saw her. "Recovery Girl?" Recovery Girl looked surprised at first, before smiling. "I'm surprised you recognize me, dearie. Now tell me, are either of you quite hurt?" "Just her," Itsuku replied politely. "She said her ankles were hurting." "And what about you, dearie?" "I'm fine. Just exhausted." Itsuku smiled. "Here, have some gummies," she said, dropping a small pouch of gummies in his hand. Isuku thanked her as she turned to focus on healing the girl. Isuku watched the process while nibbling onto the gummies, before Recovery Girl gently chided him for laying on the ground. Isuku apologized before standing up and walking towards the exit. 83 villain points," Isuku muttered. "Should be enough, right?" Right, guys, that is the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoy, and I am sorry for any stuttering, mispronunciation, or noise in the background. Bye-bye!